I remember I finally just blurted it out. I said it out of the blue. Are you having an affair? I couldn't believe I finally said it because I've been seeing the signs for a while now. But at this point, I knew it. So I just couldn't take it anymore. I remember the day really clearly. My first wife and I had just gotten in the car. We were going to go visit my parents like we usually did on the weekend. And I remember putting the key in the ignition. But then I hesitated, put my hands in my lap, and just sat there in silence as I worked up the courage to confront her. I didn't make eye contact. I just kind of gazed in her direction, kind of staring at her knees as I said those 5 words. It was one of those defining moments, that become reference points where we can easily separate before and the after. She didn't say a word for what seemed like the longest time. She just sat there, her right knee bouncing up and down, and she was nervously twisting the bracelets on her wrist. She was it told me everything I needed to know. And you know what's weird? When I first started thinking about doing this video, I don't remember, I realized that I don't remember what she said after that. I do know that we didn't go anywhere that day. We went back in the house, and for the next 7 or 8 hours, well, that's a whole nother situation. And I'm going to talk about that more in the future when I deal with how to deal with infidelity in marriage. But before I talk about those early and less obvious signs that I want to get to in this video, I want to first talk about the more common and more typical signs, because I experienced those also. And even my coworker saw it. They told me over and over, dude, she's cheating on you. And I kind of blew them off at first, but then I started to realize it. So here are some of the most obvious signs that your spouse is having an affair that I saw as well. The first one was working longer hours. Suddenly, she was having to work late into the evening, almost every night, which was atypical. She wasn't getting home until after 10 o'clock some nights. And, I'd ask her about it. She said to work late because of such and such a project or whatever. But at first I bought it, but then I started to question her. So I called her. No answer. I'd ask her why she wasn't able to answer the phone, and she would always have an excuse. Well, about a week before I finally confronted her, I drove out to her work one evening to see if she was there. And it's no big surprise that she wasn't. The second sign is sort of like it. It's being unreachable. Because in addition to the evenings when she was supposed to be at work and I couldn't reach her, the same was often true for the weekends as well. She would say that she had stuff to do, but then I wouldn't be able to get a hold of her all day. I mean, she'd be gone all day, from morning until late at night. Now, this third one, this takes the cake, okay? A couple weeks before I confronted her, she told me that she had to go out of town for a work event, an overnight thing. Now, this was really uncommon. Her job just usually didn't require that sort of stuff, and I was already getting suspicious. Well, the night before she left, I had the opportunity to go through her bag without her knowing. And I found a Victoria's Secret shopping bag with brand new, sexy lingerie. Okay, now to say that was a sign that she was cheating would be an understatement, I know. But other common signs that I saw, that she became very secretive and suddenly placed a high value on privacy that she didn't before. Another one is she became sort of hesitant to talk about plans for a future, or to make, to buy that new car and so on. And she started making sure that her computer history was always clear when I would look at it after she'd been using the computer. Now, I think those are common signs, I think. And I know they say hindsight is 20/20, but I still should have seen it coming a lot sooner. Looking back now, I can see there were several signs that were really early on that should have raised suspicion on my part. But here's the thing. These early signs that should have told me that there was a problem, I actually thought they were a good thing initially. I saw them as a good thing for our relationship. I know that's weird, but I think you'll understand in a few minutes when I talk about it. All right, so let's get into these really early signs that my spouse was having an affair that I didn't notice. Now, these were long before I realized, maybe like a year. And, like I said, I thought these were a good thing. Number one was we didn't argue anymore. I don't know if other people experience this or not. I guess it depends on whether they ever argued in the first place. But early in our marriage, and up until the last year or so, we would argue a lot. And there were certain issues that were hot buttons that would always get brought up again and again. And they were friction between us, things that particularly made her upset. And looking back now, I can see that in the last year or so, we didn't argue about them at all. Things that had previously irritated her or been a sore spot didn't seem to bother her anymore. And I even remember talking with a friend and telling him that I thought our marriage had reached a more mature stage. Boy, was I wrong. Because I thought that's why we weren't fighting as much. Knowing what I know now, I think she'd simply become indifferent. She just didn't care. The other one was that she no longer showed any jealousy whatsoever. And then the third one, I wasn't sure what to call this, but I remember that we took a walk down the road one day, and she started talking about how she thought I should become more focused on myself and hobbies and spending time with friends and so on, and that I shouldn't be so focused on our home life and marriage. Well, I actually thought that sounded pretty good, because I had some things I wanted to do, and but now I realized she was just preparing me for the future, I think, that because she knew that, I don't know, I think she was preparing me somehow. Maybe it reveals that she had some concern about how I would take this, or she was trying to prepare me. I don't know. On the other hand, she may have been trying to strategically set it up so that separation was easier. Maybe she was trying to give me a hint. I'll never know what she was thinking, honestly. And then the next one is paying more attention to physical appearance. Listen, we were married for 7 years, and in the 8.5 years we knew each other, this is my first wife, remember, I don't remember her ever really caring about wearing makeup, nice clothes, or exercising. And I mean, we didn't dress in rags or anything, but we weren't really concerned about that sort of thing. She never had any desire for that. But that all changed, of course. Changed big time during our affair. She would start buying nice clothes. She was wearing makeup, exercising almost every day, pretty vigorously. I thought it was great. I thought, man, she's looking really good, and she seemed healthy, and maybe it's different when they're going to a health club where they never did before, and that might set up more suspicion, but she was doing it at home, and I just didn't get suspicious. Okay, so those are the less common signs, and if you're still watching this, it's probably because you're suspicious. Your spouse might be having an affair or cheating. Keep in mind that this is my experience, and while I know that some of these signs of a cheating spouse are typical, others may not be so common. And the other thing is that you need to remember is that a number of these signs could be present in a relationship even when a spouse is not cheating. And that's why I want to encourage you to be very careful in how that you approach the situation, because obviously accusing your spouse of having an affair when they're not, that could have a negative impact on your relationship. That's kind of an understatement. So take it slow. Thoughtfully consider what your next step should be. In our Shimley Effect Marriage Reset Intensive Free Marriage Workshop, we talk about, what is taking place physically when someone's under the stress of marriage problems, such as rejection of a spouse or infidelity. And the truth is, it's one of the most stressful events that can take place in someone's life. The only thing that's more stressful than going through this is the death of a spouse or a child. And when we're experiencing this type of stress from a cheating spouse, our blood pressure goes up, the stress hormone cortisol floods the bloodstream and makes it difficult to think clearly. And as a result, your body goes into this fight or flight mode. And when this happens, it can have a real negative impact on how we respond. And so I want to encourage you to take it slow and do your best to think through how to handle the situation. It might help to talk with a friend, a counselor, a therapist, or even a pastor. Let us know in the comments if you've experienced any of these signs, or if maybe you have some other signs that you're experiencing that are raising your suspicion levels. I'd like to hear about it. Thank you.